I hate that mirror, it makes me feel so worthless. I'm an original sinner, but when I'm with you, I couldn't care less. I've been getting away with it all my life. However I look, it's clear to see that I love you more than you love me. However I look, it's clear to see I love you more than you love me. Mass and space. There it was again, that little dark tree, a little dark opening there amidst the pale green and purple and fir and oak. There it was, underneath the pale blue sky and white cotton clouds. Each time she tried to go towards it, it seemed she lost it. Like when you see something from afar, but you think it can't be that far, and you take the 10 minutes or so to walk over, only to never see it again. Like you can only see it from far away. Or maybe it was much farther away than you could have ever imagined. Well, she sees it now. Everything is clear today, crystalline. And she can also see the vivid green grass in between, and all the pale green and purple and fir and oak. She can see straight through to the water. Her body was in disarray. That's how she'd put it. Complete disarray. And not just now. This disintegration had been coming on for some time, and only now was it showing up as arthritic knees and migraines that arrived around 2 a.m. with a baseball bat and a smirk. This could also have been due to her burgeoning career as the most amateur of boxers, but this was also a symptom of her disarray, however emotionally beneficial it was to her. And a cycle is born. There was some sort of rash on her legs, making it impossible to shave. At night, she was so itchy she thought she might have scabies. A little bump had developed on the left side of her neck, which she suspected of cancer but refused to get checked out. Her freckles were all of a sudden appearing dark and blotchy and reddish to her. She had never previously considered them too much, only to observe they were the only part of her skin that lent it any pigment, and to be thankful for it. Now she felt insulted. Grief changes you. Most people would accept this as true, and most would consider these changes internal, emotional. But of course, the internal and external aspects of ourselves do not work independently, and so grief, like any kind of trauma, changes the way you look. While it busies itself miniaturizing everything inside your brain so you end up thinking a million tiny things while any larger items succumb to blackout, your outsides also pay a price. In her case, she'd grown quite thin, gaunt. It used to be, although never a bombshell, that she might turn a few heads in the street on a good day. Now she was invisible. She stopped looking in the mirror, hating the old gray lady she saw standing there. Old and hard and mean. Old and hard were new. Mean, people had always thought she was mean. She didn't act the part of a nice person, although that's what she was. She had always thought that. It was the way she was raised. It was what she knew to be right. She got tired, at some point, before her parents got sick, before her husband got sick of her, of fighting. She got tired of trying to make herself understood in rooms where there was no understanding. If people thought she was mean or stupid or flippant or empty or whatever they needed to make themselves feel better, she'd just act that way and get away with it. It was bad enough before she lost her family, before her parents died and her sister checked out and her husband left her. And after she just sunk into it, actually became what she had been pretending for so long. The mask just stuck. Not unsurprisingly, this did not help her in her work, which had always been elusive to her. Inspiration is an elusive little trickster at the best of times, And if that is what you rely on, instead of the raw skill you were supposed to have been working on all this time, then everything is going to be a brown paper bag for you. When she went into the studio now to mess about with clay, she only felt resentful, and her hands were raw and red and aching by the end of her sessions. She hated it, was bored by it. She hated that she had to do these mock-ups first. Mock-ups of what, though? They were supposed to be human, but the closest they came, on a very good day, was something like a golem. She didn't like sculpting people, or not people like this anyway, real ones with hands and feet that had to look real. She had been trained so rigorously in this, had worked so hard to achieve the realness of a human being's corporeal existence, she felt she must use it in her work, and use it in this most literal of ways. She hated it. At first she thought she'd just get used to it, that something that required so much from her would suddenly come naturally. Well, it didn't. It never did. And she resented the hell out of it. She hated working with clay. She did not find it therapeutic or soothing. She always wanted to wash her hands. And she hated making these fucking models. Every day, at the end of these blinding sessions, she wrote in her notebook, "Why are you working so hard on something so horrible?" Like a mantra, or writing lines in detention. What she wanted to do was slice right through that knot, or in her case, just take a blade to a piece of marble and see what she got. She did not like the premeditative aspect of making a model. She thought it dishonest and boring, moreover, because it wasn't like the rough draft of something. It was an outline, and that was too much to bear. Where was the fun in that? Where was the mystery? How was she supposed to know what she wanted to do until she did it? She looked at that block of marble every day, wanting to just pull that sheet off of it and go to town. She paced round it like a panther. Why couldn't she do it? Well, it just wasn't done. What if she hacked into it and messed up? Marble is expensive, and she'd put so much into learning this skill. Really, of course, she was afraid. Most bad decisions are based in fear, and she had succumbed to it. She knew that if she kept doing as she was told, she'd get something she could at least show. She had done it before. In fact, anyone can do this. The Brain Trust and their 10,000 hours is right about that. Most people can practice and practice and practice, and they will, eventually, become proficient at any given thing. But, as all people with talent know, and all people without it hate, you cannot teach heart and soul, nor can you practice at it. And she found that while she had the necessary skill to sculpt, she did not have the talent, and chopping into that block may prove it. So there she was, alone in a big, strange city, underweight, hairy, injured, skin coming apart, hair falling out, and she untalented. By the time she bumped into him that night in the street, on her way back from a late night of throwing herself around in the boxing ring, she felt like a wizened old alley cat, sinewy and tough and spitting and untouchable. But he didn't look at her like that. The way he looked at her made her feel soft and warm and melty inside. And, in spite of herself, in spite of her atrophied old face, she smiled at him. She didn't even think about it, and he smiled back at her, as if he'd been expecting her, as if he knew her, and it was about time they see each other once more. And that was it that first night, just a passing glance in the street, but she'd felt it instantly, the debris of her mind and body being pushed aside, pushed down so that, perhaps, what was really there might have a chance. Over the next little while, she found herself bumping into him more and more, and eventually he asked her to coffee, and she invited him to the studio, and gradually, as they saw each other more and more, she saw a change, a real one, she was certain. Her skin was pink and white again. Her cheeks filled out. The crow's feet around her eyes and mouth weren't so pronounced. They were there, of course, but not so deep, not so like deep rivers running through her face. She was taller. Don't scoff, it's true. She was never a short person. She was above average, in fact, for a woman. But all that time she'd been feeling bony and thin and jagged and dry. She'd also been feeling quite short. She was short. It wasn't just a feeling. And then she wasn't. She didn't have a compact, muscular little body. She was long-limbed and willowy again. Her hands released their fists, and she started talking with them again. Her breasts became full, her hips fleshy. Her skin was smooth, her cheeks and lips pink, flushed and luscious and plump. When she went into the studio now and circled that sheeted bastard in the middle of the room, she didn't resent the day and every teacher who had ever told her she was doing it wrong. She only thought of the most important rule she had ever heard, the only one you need to make anything worth looking at. The object's placement in space should respect its subject matter. The only rule you need to make anything work. And finally, she was ready, and she took no more time to consider the problem. She just sliced through it, and she felt a sense of relief she had not felt since before all her trouble began, and went home that night, falling into a sleep that lasted until the next night. And when she went back the following morning, there he was again, this most handsome sword, and she'd thought of him this way ever since. A muse just stands there on the periphery, giving everything and receiving nothing. But a sword is an instrument of change, action, something you can count on. And now she sits looking out at the dark trees and pale green and purple and fir and oak and blue, and a tall figure making his way up the sloping path, cutting through the scenery to her place on the hill, a beautiful blade.